as we know, so we're about to commence the Zoom, and I will make a public statement. I advise members that this is a public hearing and is being recorded. The recording will be made available on the Bay of Plenty Regional Council website following the meeting and archived for a period of 3 years. Those members of the public here today, all care will be taken to maintain your privacy. However, as a visitor in the public gallery, your presence may be recorded. By remaining in the public gallery, it is understood your consent is given to your image if it is inadvertently broadcast. I also remind all present that local government decision-making affords no protection to councillors, council officers and the public. The comments made during the meetings are subsequently challenged in a court of law and determined to be slanderous. So first off, can I just acknowledge the Worship Mayor of Whakatane, Mayor Turner. Good to have you acknowledge your room today. So with that, I would like to invite Tim Ferguson to come forward from the Adaptation Marina and Industrial Park. Tim, are you an old candidate? No, are you an old candidate, that sort of thing?
Yeah, I'm a self-employed planning consultant.
Okay, you know the process?
I do.
Okay, you've got about 10 minutes. Okay, so it'll be reasonably conversational. But at the end of it, we will invite panel members to pose any questions to you. We don't get into a debate with you, as you well know, from your experience, but there may be some questions or points of clarification that they would like to put to you. So we'd also like to introduce the person accompanying you, so
Sure.
that in the minutes.
Morning, Robert. This is Chris Peterson. He is the Director of Adaptation Marina and Industrial Park Limited, who are the submitter in this case. And this morning we'll both be speaking to the submission that we've made, starting with Chris to provide a bit of background on the project. And then I'll cover the actual submission points that we've made on the regional entrance project.
Kia ora. So I would just like to give a brief overview, an introduction of where we're from. So I'm representing Adaptation Marina Industrial Park Limited, which is a company that owns the an area of land on the western bank of the Adaptation River, that is zoned as a marine industrial zone that is now under development to provide a marina basin, a wharf, and berthage for the aquaculture and mussel industry in Apotiki. So you'll all be familiar with the Apotiki Harbour development, which is underway now, building breakwaters to $100 million development, funded 20 million from the regional council and the balance from small amount from Apotiki District Council and the balance from the provincial development unit, MB. MB initially saw it as essential. They would not go ahead with that breakwater development unless we developed our block, and have come in partnership with us and are funding our block as well. So the two go together hand in hand. And we have the MB funding, provincial development unit funding for our block as well. On our block, like I've said, we are committed to digging out a basin, providing safe anchorage for boats to get out of the river channel, berthage for the aquaculture industry boats, wharfage for them to unload, and haul out area for boat maintenance and other marine-based industrial developments. So this is seen, you'll all be aware of the impact this will have on our local community over there, and it's really got a lot of push and from the community, from all aspects, really, businesses, from government, from everything. So in our development, we have an access way onto onto the highway, State Highway 2, 1.5 kilometres north, I suppose, or west. You've got the plans in front of you anyway, so you know where I'm talking about. You know our intersection. So that intersection, initially, we had discussions with NZTA, this is going way back in our early days, about the amount of traffic that we would put into that intersection, and came up with an acceleration lane plan which would match the amount of volume of traffic that we would be putting into there. We're if you look at the concept plan that I think you guys have got in front of you, or that we've submitted anyway, you can see our development. The Wallfish, two Waymole, Whakatoria Mussels, Ōpōtiki Limited will be bringing in 2 boats a day. It takes 3 trucks to unload the boats, so we're not looking at massive volumes of traffic initially anyway. So we budgeted and have in our plan a small amount of money to upgrade that intersection. However, talking to NZTA, they came up with the idea of putting a roundabout there. Gold standard would be a roundabout in that area, and that had a lot of support from a lot of different aspects. Not only would it be good for our entrance, but it was also supported by Ōpōtiki District Council in our discussions with them, because they wanted to reduce the traffic flow. This is basically the entry point into the Ōpōtiki town, and they wanted this to slow the traffic coming in. There is Beds Road intersection nearby, which doesn't have good enough sight lines. There is the S-bends that run along the edge of the Waiwaka River with houses that entranceways come straight out onto that highway. So there are good reasons for getting the traffic slowed, and this would be an opportunity to put the roundabout there. Safety net is that we're working currently on the highway between Ōpōtiki and Whakatane, have had it in their sights to do an upgrade, to widen it and to put barriers at that intersection, because they see it as a hazard at present without anything extra happening. There is also opportunity for development of more industrial area on Ian Connor's land around this, and that has and areas that are around that highway that would also need road access in the future. So putting this all together, it is our suggestion that a combined effort of putting a roundabout up there, in there now, up front, would be a very good provision for the future, given the development that will happen all around us. This is an opportunity. If you miss this opportunity to acquire the land, we don't have enough land to put a roundabout there. Ian Connor will have to contribute some land, but his land is under possible rezoning, so he's quite amenable to that. And we just see it as a good opportunity to really make a progressive enhancement of safety, and also economic development of the area. Thank you.
Chris, we don't appear to have a copy of your plan. Did you send it to us, or can you send it to us?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, you just found it. Okay. Okay, thank you.
So in terms of the submission that we've made on the draft regional land transport plan, the submission supports the recognition in the transport plan of both the Ōpōtiki Harbour Development and the Ōpōtiki Marine and Industrial Park projects as being important economic development projects for the Eastern Bay of Queensland. The Marine and Industrial Park project and the associated access improvements, which Chris has spoken about, will contribute to a sustainable, resilient and safe transport system. The project's critical to realising the projected regional economic growth that's enabled through the significant investment that's been made in the Ōpōtiki Harbour development. And the project, in our view, supports the achievement of the regional land transport vision that's set out in the regional land transport plan. We believe the intersection improvements provided as part of the project are aligned with the objectives in the RLTP. The success of the Ōpōtiki Harbour development will rely on the safe and efficient access to the industrial precinct and in particular the transport link from the site to the agriculture processing facility which is currently being built in the Potoki. And this is aligned with Objective 6 in the land transport plan. The roading improvements in this location will also support the achievement of safety objectives along the section of highway, and that's already been identified as an area that's requiring safety improvements, as Chris mentioned, and that's aligned with Objective 1 in the land transport plan. The inclusion of supporting regional growth as a key priority in the regional land transport plan is supported, along with the identification of the Potoki Harbour development as a key project within there. The draft regional land transport plan recognises that maintaining safe and reliable transport connections to and from the harbour is a critical success factor for regional land transport plan investment. The submission requests that those objectives and the key priorities are retained. We are seeking through our submission a change to the regional land transport plan. Currently, the draft plan lists the Potoki Harbour development within the package of non-national land transport funded projects under the Potoki investment heading in Table 16. As Chris has outlined, the road improvements required to enable the development aren't included within the current funding allocations. The construction of a roundabout at the intersection would provide a range of benefits, but in our view, would go beyond what we would need purely to mitigate the traffic effects of the MIP project. Such an upgrade would need to be funded by a range of sources, including private developer funding and Waikato investment. In our view, the project would meet the National Land Transport Plan funding criteria, fits within the State Highway Improvements Road to Zero activity category. The access improvements also align with the strategic priorities set out in the government policy statement on land transport. This includes the focus on improving the safety of the transport system and improving freight connections for primary producers to facilitate economic development. So this submission seeks support for the addition of the access improvements as an activity that's included in the Waikato investment proposal. The suggested wording for the inclusion of the activity in Table 15 of the plans has been provided in our written submission. So in summary, the submission supports the vision, the key priorities and the objectives of the draft LTP and seek that they be retained. The submission also supports the identification of the Potoki Harbour development and the Marina Industrial Park as important economic development projects in the Eastern Bay of Plenty. And in recognition of the significance of the project and taking account of the range of benefits resulting from the construction of a roundabout at that intersection, the submission seeks the addition of those access arrangements as an activity that's included in the Waikato investment proposal. Thank you for your time. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Panel members, any questions or points of clarification? There appears to be none. Thank you. And we'll give it due consideration as part of the deliberation. So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Tim. Your Worship. Welcome. Now, yesterday in Tauranga, as a courtesy, we extended a little bit of extra time to both TCC and Western Bay in their presentation, so I'm going to even be more generous this morning. So our next presenter's on Zoom at 10:20, so you can really paint a good picture. So go for it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'd like to introduce Kashi Bull. Kashi is our Manager of Strategy, and so I'm invited to be here, and I'm invited to also interact with me and if you'd like to on our submission. I also want to begin by thanking you all for working on behalf of particularly the Eastern Bay of Plenty. In that regard, in general, we have very strong support for the direction that the committee is proposing to take with transport in the region. We have a particular strong focus right now in the Council on climate change, and so any aspects that relate to climate change are of high interest to us, and we are well advanced. We've moved past strategy into an action plan, firstly around our own carbon footprint and the like, and reducing that, and then looking district-wide to see, we've got some quite aspirational goals in that space. We're working with you on those would be great. So I mainly just want to spend the time, assuming you've read our submission, but just to make 4 points. First is, just as I've been talking about, that climate change is a big emphasis for us. And one of the things that's been ticking away in the background for our council has been active transport. But this really, and we've been very supportive of some of the cycleways linking districts and things like that, and still are. But what happened particularly over COVID, a group we had called Active Whakatane, which was looking at across the entire district around cycling and walking, other mobility scooters, mums with prams, and there's also a project called Safe Walking Access to Schools. That had been ticking along, but over COVID, what happened was when suddenly the roads weren't so busy and people were out and about in active transport, the pressure on us to get this right quicker, and submission to that again has been quite substantial. So we are taking that internal sense of our mobility alternative means quite seriously, and so just want to let you know that that's one of our focuses. And where it intersects with, say, the regional council is things like people are looking at our stop banks and saying, they need to be walkways and cycleways, they need to have a footpath on the top of them and those types of things, so that as those things are redesigned and looked at, that type of considerations can continue to be part of that. And we do see that, even with particularly that active area around climate change issues, what we can do on our own is substantially less than what we can do collaboratively together. So I guess those conversations, and we feel really fit and ready for those conversations now because we've done our own homework. I guess we didn't declare an emergency, we got on into some planning and seriously at that level. And around, so we think that climate change adaptation involves transport. We must have that's one of the lenses that we must be looking through. And we see now climate change as a lens that we view everything through. That's how we look through, because we see that it's legitimately taken seriously. And we quite like and strongly support some collaborative projects around identifying risk and adaptation planning. I think that's something that we are doing, but we'd like to do more collaboratively across the region. When it comes to public transport, we do support the intent of looking at improving public transport. However, as you're aware, we have a lot of rural, isolated communities who are probably some of those most in need of public transport for health and all sorts of reasons. I'm mindful of discussion at the Public Transport Committee where we talked about staff talked to us about the fact that they are aware of some alternatives that have been trialled successfully in other districts for providing public transport into smaller rural communities. I haven't heard the detail of that yet, but that really excited me. I think the sub-region was Eastern Bay of Plenty. We would be really interested if we could identify or have help us to identify what might work better rather than a big blue bus that's got two people on a trip in a long distance. We think there are some other things that could be considered, or we've heard there are. We'd like to hear more about it and then cooperate with what information comes our way. So just to signal that's a big interest for us. And I've just been this week to 3 community boards, and certainly up in Mananui, Murupara, and out at Ruatoki and places like that, there are some real issues here, and public transport was brought up without me having to bring the subject up. So there is some real interest in what can develop here that would still attract support from regional council in terms of some subsidies and things like that, but that would be more workable. Okay. And lastly, in terms of the 4 points I wanted to make is And it'll probably be no surprise that I'm bringing this up, but I'm bringing it up for a slightly different reason to last time we talked about it, is a second bridge into Whakatane. I think in the past we have perhaps a little self-servingly, banged the table with NZT and the lights to say we want to need this, and we certainly got the traffic numbers now to justify a second bridge into town for our own needs. But what became apparent to me talking to the other sub-regional mayors, so Kawerau and Putiki, is that they need us to get a second bridge as well. So that if you look at the intention of Kawerau with the land port and the rail going to the port that they are processing, they still need to get the goods to Kawerau, and the second bridge would help. That will take a huge number potentially of heavy vehicles off the road between the Eastern Bay and the port. Once it's up and running, the intentions are very, very good, but they still have to get their goods to that rail link. And a second bridge, in terms of getting our product to the Western Bay to get it exported, is going to be quite a big thing. So they also see, and for route security reasons, they actually are hoping and relying on us getting a second bridge as well. And I hadn't fully understood that. I think I'd seen it from a pure Whakatane district perspective. And just recently, of course, when we evacuated, it became blatantly obvious. And when you're talking tsunami, the last thing you want is people going over the one bridge that actually is a coastal bridge in terms of its location. You do need that route security to get people out of town or inland. Could be people who went, and most of us went up the hill, but a lot of people went out to Taniata, and some, depending on where they lived, out coastal, a lot of the coastal people went to Kawerau. But again, they had to come out and overthrough them. They had to spend more time probably closer to the coast than it's safe, particularly for, I guess I'll make this one comment. One of the most impacting civil defence meetings I've been to was about 3 or 4 years ago. I was in Rotorua, the regional one, and they were talking about what are our really big risks here in New Zealand. It was thinking across the whole country. And one of the biggest risks that they are deeply concerned about, and why they changed the language of their messaging on TV and media to "If it's long and strong, be gone," is that down to the bottom of the North Island here, we have a place where the two main fault lines, I'm not sure that they connect or they come close, but they are close by. If that closeness results in it blows, and they think it's likely, they don't think it's unlikely that will happen, it will be an 8 point something, and the east coast of the North Island has to evacuate into high or inland as fast as our colleagues will take us. They don't want us waiting for our phone to beep or for something to come on the radio. They want us to use our own common sense and move. And we will all know, because we'll be able to, it will be that big. And that was a bit of a wake-up call to the vulnerability of where we live, and how route security and getting out quickly is important for a large number of people, not just Whakatane, but actually others coastal. So I just bring that to say, we're asking for your ongoing support on that particular matter. For me, I now see it as a bigger issue than I even first understood. So just, again, just love your ongoing support with NZTA to see if we can get that across the line sometime, sooner rather than later. Okay? Did you have anything to add?
I think the only thing I might just talk to a little bit would be what we're doing as a council, so it's not just about asking for the committee to do things. We are just about to be consulting on our long-term plan, as I'm sure we're going to do similar processes. We have included $1 million per year additional into active transport, so obviously it's very much aligned with the committee's work, and so just so that you're aware of that, looking at upgrades to footpaths and improving people's ability to move around within townships, but also very much that sort of inter-township access. The other thing that we have included in our long-term plan is around this a project around climate change adaptation, and so obviously, particularly with the transport lens on, looking at some of those key routes that are potentially at risk from coastal inundation or sort of rivers. So again, very much aligned with, I think, the intentions of the regional transport plan, but just sort of we're very much embedding those things into our business as usual as well. So great to see that alignment.
Turner, can we commend you for your leadership on the Eastern Bay of Plenty?
Thank you.
Full marks. Panel members, any questions for me? Councillor Lees.
I have, good to see you, Judy. This question isn't to do with your submission, but it's more to do with an issue that's been raised yesterday and that we're going to have to turn our heads to. And that is the relative weightings that we've got, and you'll be aware of this issue, that there were a set of ratings and they were reviewed by the RAG, put back to the Regional Transport Committee, and that they are this rate weightings that are in this plan at the moment. I worry that there's a bit of confusion between the resilience component of climate change and how that's been heavily weighted, more heavily weighted, and the resilience in the freight component of the plan. So we've had submissions yesterday asking us to increase the freight and resilience weighting and perhaps look at rebalancing some of the others. What have you got any thoughts on that?
I suppose probably the only thought would be, I guess, ensuring that holistic view. So there are a number of competing priorities, and we've obviously identified that climate change is one for us, but economic regeneration, particularly in light of volcanic eruption and COVID and the impact that's had on our community. So in terms of anything that supports that sort of economic recovery is also really important for us. And I think the other thing as well is just generally around kind of affordability for our community. So probably not directly answering your question, but I guess just sort of being aware of those competing demands and competing priorities and how those are balanced. I guess that will be a good conversation for the committee to have in terms of how you kind of align that weighting.
And, you know, on the deprivation index, we're a big red block as a district. We average about 8 across our communities. And that's affordability is a big issue for us. However, I also acknowledge that, you know, and I don't think we've done it as bad as I think that you know, we're now facing big expenses going forward. We have to work on our assumptions. We can't currently, until something lands, assume that the three waters are going to happen as a government intends, and we have to look at what we must do if that falls over, or as has happened in our past, where a government today is looking to take an office and suddenly change their mind. So we have, with resource consent expiring in 2026, the pressure is on, and we said to the community, we're not even asking you, we have to do this. You know, these are the things we've got some options about. There's no option, and it's our biggest number one issue is our three waters and the dates that are fast approaching. So that is what we're doing at present to try and manage the next 3 years. Is we've got a vast community that's still part of our consultation with them. Is whether it'd be happy for us to smooth that out so that it's over the 3 years rather than lumping it out for 3 years and say with one close to over 9%. The first year that we've got down to just over 4, and we tested that to see whether around about 6.8 across 3 years would be more palatable. But yeah, it is a big issue. We can't ignore it, but we also have to get things done. So that's the tension we're in, and we're growing. The first 9 years of being on council, the Stats New Zealand told us repeatedly we were in decline and to get over it. We could adjust our sails for that. Suddenly that message has changed, and since 2013 we have been growing and we haven't stopped growing. And now we're facing housing shortages and workforce development. These are some big challenges coming our way, which are welcome, but we need to try and stay on top of them and manage them. So there's spatial planning is I think going to be a big thing. We talked to a regional council this afternoon.
But your worship, as Councillor Lees has highlighted, we've listened to a lot of submissions in recent days, and we're in a real conundrum.
Yes,
over on this call, we've got the climate change protagonists and the carbon reduction freight. In this case, we've got the freight and economies and boost the bar and go for broke. And So it's
Full
something that
sympathy,
we're going to
I think
wrestle with.
we're all
So
facing it.
any wise counsel you can give us on that would be greatly handy. Any other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Donaldson from Rotorua.
Mr. Chair, you touched on the holistic view being taken in terms of weightings and the need to balance climate change action, resilience and economic recovery. So just, can you give us a snapshot of how your economy has been affected globally by COVID? I know
Yeah.
tourism.
Yes, but we're probably, when you compare us to like the Queenstown and even Rotorua, where we've been fortunate is that we were at a space where 80% of our visitor economy was domestic. And we were working hard to build that 20% international. That's the bit that fell over quickly and very fast. But we did have, and because New Zealanders couldn't go overseas as well, we probably got through the summer season and life's okay. It was better than some others we feared because we had that space in the well-known area. And our horticulture farm communities are going fine. We've got some aspirations around that visitor economy. We've got this PGF funding for the new more for the marine school. So workforce development, we've just as of within the last 24 hours heard that there's a potential buy for the border wars because that's been another big crisis as well, our biggest private provider of employment. And so we're waiting, we don't know detail on that, but it's sounding positive. And of course, there's 220 people employed directly at the mill, but then there's all the contractors, the subbies and their staff for whom the mill is their main client. You won't get redundancy payouts and things like that. So there's quite a big concern about the impact of that. But we're now sort of hopefully holding our breath to see that stays standing up at some point. But yeah, it is. It's a bit of unknown. I don't think we're anything there, but
And I think just the same challenge that you'll be thinking about, we're thinking about at council in terms of how you balance those competing priorities.
yeah.
Panel members, any further questions or comments? There being none, your worship, have a wonderful day. You've done good work in the Eastern Bay.
Thank you. Keep up the good work.
Give us some wisdom of Solomon on dealing with the conundrum, which is greatly valued. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you so much. Panel members, if we can now go to the front of your submissions to page 65. Peter, can you hear us?
Hello.
Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. My name is Pete.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for being with us. This is the Regional Land Transport Plan Hearing Subcommittee, and we appreciate you making yourself available to come in by Zoom. Have you presented to a committee such as this before?
No, I have not.
Okay, so what we do is you have about 10 minutes to present your case and speak to your submission, and then the panel members will ask you, or may not, ask you a few questions or points of clarification. So as we say colloquially, the floor is yours. So over to you, Peter.
Okay, first of all, my name is Dutch and it's pronounced Pete.
My apologies.
That's okay. I won't take 2 minutes.
Hold on, you're freezing, we think.
Listen to his video.
I think his video's okay. Just get closer.
Who?
His video's
Closer? Is that better?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I won't take 10 minutes of your time, but first of all, I would like to I am the bus driver for Whangamarino School. Whangamarino School is between Mauria and Okere Falls. Are you familiar with the area I'm speaking about?
Yes.
Okay, so the buses are parked up at the school every day. So to get from Mauria to the school to pick up my bus in the morning. I have to bike to the school. Now, in my cycling trip, there's a very narrow section between the boat ramp and the school. There's a bank on one side and the lake on the other side, so there's no room for a bike, so I have to be in the path of the traffic. And sometimes I have to compete with logging trucks. So there is a safety issue there. I understand that there is a plan for a shared walkway to go along. I'd like that prioritised, not only for my own safety, but for the children that live in Moria and would like to walk to the school. About a 10-minute walk. It's easily walkable, but at the moment we have to pick up about 12 kids from Moria and there's no safe way to walk to school.
Excuse me, Pete, would you mind just going a bit closer to your computer so we can hear you better, please? Just come
Hello?
closer to your lap, that's better.
Okay. So have you understood my presentation so far?
Yes.
Okay, so the other issue I'd like to talk about is connectedness. When we first came to live in Moria, which was about 7 years ago, there was a daily bus service between Tauranga and Rotorua twice a day. But that bus stop, that bus service has been stopped. So now there is no public transport to get to either Te Puke or to get to Rotorua, and so everyone has to have a car. And if there's only one car in the family, someone needs to take a day off work to take someone into town. And also, it's problematic for people who want to go to Te Puke to be on the kiwi fruit chain to pack the kiwi fruit because there's no public transport. So I would like that bus service to be reinstated if possible. That's the end of my presentation. I would like both those issues to be prioritised, please.
Thank you, Pete. And we apologise for the video connection that we were having a few problems with. We got the main thrust of your two requests. You'll be pleased to know on this subcommittee we have Deputy Mayor Donaldson from Rotorua, and I know cycleways and walking tracks and health and safety issues at Oakeri Falls are very high on his priority list, and also as council. So I know you'll have a question, Councillor Donaldson. We'll reassure the presenter.
Well, just kia ora, Pete. Well familiar with the area, and I do cycle to Papamoa occasionally. So I completely understand your presentation, and thank you for your words today.
Panel members, any further questions? Pete, there's no further questions. We've taken on board your submission, and we thank you for taking time out to present to us, be it by Zoom. So all we can do now is wish you a very good day and say goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye now.
Bye. Thanks.
So morning tea now. So do you want to have a discussion over morning tea, or because I'm mindful some of these people, their time is valuable. So okay, well we can do that. I'll formally close this hearing. Seconded Councillor Donaldson. All those in favour, please say aye. It's carried.